Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 65 years.
My guest is Johnny Robinson, and if you're a Louisianian, the name is familiar to you. A member of LSU's national championship team, a world-class tennis player. His dad was coach at LSU for more than 25 years. In fact, the tennis stadium is named for him. And then a first-round draft pick in the National Football League, a great player for Kansas City, where he led the league one season in interceptions. A player in 2 Super Bowls. One of them they won. He's got a ring on one finger for the Super Bowl, ring on the other finger for LSU's national championship. Now, that's about as much glory as one man could have in a lifetime. But I'm here today to give you a different viewpoint. I think that Johnny Robinson's true glory takes place right now and for the last 20 years in an old antique antebellum mansion in Monroe, Louisiana. Johnny, welcome to Louisiana Legends.
Thank you, Gus. I
and
appreciate it.
You won. Before we get into the heavyweight stuff, what was it like to be on that LSU national championship team?
Well, it's still a thrill every time we think about it. You know, we just had our last reunion at the Kentucky game last year, and most of the guys came in for it, and you know, the electricity's still there. You know, that season stands out. It'll be important to us the rest of our lives.
And for every LSU
that's
alumni
right.
student. Let me ask you this: what special made that, of all the teams that LSU has fielded, what made that year click?
Well, I think we had great coaching. You know, we didn't have a lot of coaches, but we had great coaches, and then we had great players who really cared about each other. And without question, we had one of the greatest athletes playing with us that ever played. And Billy Cannon, you know, he was not only a great football player, he was a weight man in track, won the SEC in the shot put, also ran a 9-300, and so we had the catalyst that no one else had. But we also had other great players, and we had a system that that Coach Dietzel put in 1958, where we played 3 teams, and I think it gave everybody a chance to play. Was something new, and all of a sudden everyone had a part, and everyone did their part. We had great players and mainly Louisiana kids. You know, most all of our players on that national championship team were from Louisiana.
A lot of them from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Absolutely, and you know, we were LSU fans. You know, we grew up selling Cokes and ice cream and peanuts when LSU played, and knew every athlete. I knew every great LSU athlete since I was a little kid. My dad coached and taught them, and so, you know, God, I was looking forward to going there. And
now, did you play? I think you played offense and defense.
That's right.
Was that common in those days?
It was very common. In fact, most teams played the first 11 players probably 60 minutes a game. That was how they started, and that's how they were ending. LSU, in fact, Gus, in 1959, the next year, I got the most minutes trophies played, and I think I played 38 minutes a game the following year. When we still had a great football team. We only lost 1 game, but I tell you, 60 minutes was too much. Now, you know, it's all platoon football, but we were on the new era coming in where 60 minutes was too much, and I think that's what made LSU have a great football team that year. That we were the first to get there with 33 fresh players.
Did you enjoy professional football, in which you were an astonishing player, as much as you did LSU football?
Yes, I did. I think pro football, Gus, was a little more relaxed. You know, in college, your main thrust is to get an education, go to school. You have to go to school all day, and then of course report out to practice. You miss a lot of the pleasures of the college life. You know, that we didn't get a chance to participate in. When I got into the pros, it was strictly football, and I also feel like that it was easier. We didn't have as much contact. I think one thing about college football, it was much rougher than the pros.
That will astonish people to hear you say that.
Oh, listen, the real football at LSU was played on Monday. You know, we used to call it the Dirt Bowl. The guys that didn't play in the game on Saturday and didn't get a chance to play went out and scrimmaged on Monday. And the real football at LSU, and the roughest part of it was played on Monday afternoon outside the LSU, the Tiger Stadium there. But in the pros, very little contact. It got to be to the point where you didn't carry as many players, only had 33, 34 players when I was playing. You couldn't get hurt. So the contact part of the game was only done on Sunday and not during the week. In college, guys, you hit all the time.
What was it like to help win the Super Bowl?
Well, that was the great thrill. I would have to flip a coin to determine which ring, the LSU National Championship ring or the World Championship ring of Super Bowl IV is more important. But I think that gosh, being the world champions is, you know, is playing among the very elite. You know, just has a special place, and particularly for me, we played in the first Super Bowl and lost to Green Bay, and then had my career ended there, I don't think I'd have been fulfilled. And fortunate enough, we were able to come back in Super Bowl IV and win, and that meant a lot to me.
Now, Johnny Robinson is, of course, in every Hall of Fame you can imagine, and to let you know what they think of him, he's a member of LSU's Team of the Century, and then when you go into the pros, he's a member of the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame and a member of the NFL Team of the 60s. So folks, particularly you young men out there, we're talking about as much glory as anybody could need. And you get out of football and you do some coaching and you're a stockbroker. All of that sounds very normal. That's what these guys, these superheroes of our times, are supposed to do. But one day, a funny thing happened to Johnny Robinson. Would you mind briefly telling us how you came to change your life from the glory of the gridiron to what surely has to be a greater glory?
Well, Gus, I gave my heart to the Lord several years before I started this boys' home. I was coaching at Northeast and working at a church, helping the youth there. One of the ladies that was a member of my church taught at LTI, which is right down the block from Johnny Robinson's boys' home, which is this old antique home that we have here. And she used to bring a couple of the young children to church with her. You know, they had some 9 or 10-year-olds that were in jail down there at the time, and she would bring a couple of these little kids to church with her every Sunday, and I got the chance to meet them. And then one day when I was at the university, I got a call from her, and said the little boy was in jail down here at LTI and would ask to see me. I went down there to see him, and gosh, he had been in a horrible fight and, you know, just was begging for some help. beat up and you know, was just helpless, you know, and until you're really faced with something like that, you really don't
But
know
that
that it
wasn't
even
your
happened.
business. You could have said at that moment, listen, I'm going to give y'all some money, you know, get the kid to a good doctor, buy him some ice cream, and call me anytime. But you weren't quite able to walk away.
Well, Gus, when I came back, you know, I've told you LTI is 10 blocks down
That's
the street.
Louisiana Training Institute, and that's where some pretty rough folks are kept.
Well, that's right. And
It's a prison.
when I came back here, I saw a for sale sign on the front yard here. And gosh, you know how sometimes you have that inner voice or that premonition that says, gee, that's for you. And something seemed to tell me that I could buy this place and bring some of those young kids that were in jail to live with me here. And so that's what I did. I drove straight home. I called the realtor and eventually ended up purchasing this place. And the first little boy I got out of jail, the first time that the keys were handed to me to the front door of this house, I went to see the judge of that little boy. He was from Minden, happened to be an LSU graduate and a football fan, and I told him that I had bought a house and I wanted to try to take some of the little kids who were in jail. He happened to have one that was under his jurisdiction, and gosh, he was merciful to me. You know, he signed a court order, picked up the phone, called LTI, told them that I'd be down to pick up that little boy, and that's how I got my first kid and got started. And gosh, it's been a roller coaster ride from there.
You know, I like what he said, a roller coaster ride, because when you fool or when you take on the responsibility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of sometimes very damaged kids, it's not like in a movie script, is it? Where there's going to be beautiful music and everything's going to turn out just fine. That's not the case, is it?
Well, it's not, Gus, and I think that anytime someone wants to do something, I think the most difficult thing for me has been the 24-hour day, 7 days a week, the responsibility. Not only, I think there's a responsibility and then there's a legal responsibility. When you take a kid and become his legal guardian and are responsible for him 24 hours a day, it changes you know, your life and the way you live, because most people are just not aware. At 8 to 5, go home, and some people work harder hours, but they can eventually lock the door. And when you're dealing with kids, particularly juveniles, it's very that situation
You
changes.
lived right here with them, didn't you?
I lived here for 14 years, lived on the premises, stayed right here. And
Folks, that wasn't the Super Bowl. There were no bands playing. Nobody was going to get a diamond ring. That was him and a bunch of lost children. Some of these kids don't have another chance, do they?
Well, a lot of them don't, but a lot of them have come out of here and made it. I hear from kids from all over the country that are you know, up in the 30s now, and you know, they're successful. I get calls all the time, so it was well worth it, Gus. And although you can't help all the kids, and I'm not an orphanage. I don't keep kids for unspecified lengths of time. Usually a child stays with me for 6 months, and then if he obeys the rules and the requirements that we have, he goes home. And sometimes he goes back into an environment which I have no control over, and he doesn't. And sometimes they're very rough. And I think the real tragedy of trying to work with kids and a lot of times is the fact that to send a 12-year-old kid back into a bad environment, bad parents, if that's the case, or maybe parents that don't have the capabilities of taking care of him, or in circumstances. Sometimes they're divorced, sometimes parents are in jail, sometimes parents are sick and different reasons, but gosh, they've got the real struggle.
Johnny, is it ever overwhelming and depressive? For example, Gus Weill could not take on this kind of work. I would be a suicide myself. No humbug, because it has to be very, very, sometimes, I mean, the kids that you handle, some of them are impaired folks. We're not talking about kids who want to go out and play softball today. We're talking about kids with desperate needs, and beyond this man and a few other places, not much hope. So, do you ever just get overwhelmed?
Well, there have been times when you know, you have to really tighten your belt, and but I think the successes that you have so far overweigh the problems, because you can help a kid, and gosh, when you do touch one and one succeeds, it uplifts you so much that it carries you over those humps for those kids that perhaps don't want to get help. You know, so a lot of times you deal with a kid who doesn't want to make it, doesn't want to keep the rules, you know, and doesn't want to abide by the rules that society has, and sometimes they're going to make life difficult for everyone. But on the other hand, you can find one of those that was in that condition or in that situation, and you can change. You know, a kid, it can happen instantly, and gosh, it just lifts you up like a kite.
I want to ask you a very personal question. Has running this home, taking on this responsibility, has it made your faith stronger? Or has it shaken it? How has it affected you spiritually? That's a rotten question, but I gotta ask. I think I'm asking for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that you know, one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is that all things are possible with God, and so you know, if it's possible with God, then there's always a possibility. There's no reason to give up hope. And the Bible also says, Gus, that all things are possible to those that believe. So there's some responsibility that I have to, and I believe that all things are possible. That even the worst kid, it's not impossible, because if you give up hope on one, then you know, you'll fall deeper into that depression you're talking about when you say, gee, what can I do? I can't help this kid. And I think you have to get out of sometimes what all the books say and what all the statistics say, and listen to what God says. He says all things are possible with God, and we have those miracles every once in a while. You know, we don't have all of them. It does happen to all of them, but you know, God seems to bless us with a lot of miracles, and that just keeps you going, keeps your faith built up, and you don't give up.
How big a waiting list? If you could take as many kids as possible today, how many kids are waiting to come in here?
Well, I think we have a large system, particularly in the juvenile justice system, and I think we're overloaded. But we're opening new facilities where they're cutting down on the times that kids have to stay at home. You know, the big problem is that most people don't realize that a lot of times a kid gets arrested, he can't go anywhere till he goes to court, and they're entitled to the privileges of the justice system just like an adult. And so a lot of times when a kid is arrested, we can't keep them in an adult prison or adult jail. So normally most of the kids that are arrested go home. And then when they're finally adjudicated and recommended that they go to a secure placement or a non-secure placement, sometimes it's a waiting list before that happens. And I think that we've just opened up a prison for 700 children, and then for another place, I hear these are not my expertise, because I'm a group home where they have more room for kids, and I'm not seeing the backup that I normally see, but we've been full here for years, and have a waiting list for kids to get in. We have a great relationship with Department of Corrections and Community Services.
Secretary Stalder top man.
He's a top man, a very difficult job. I mean, listen, listen. I wouldn't take it if you think my job is tough here. I wouldn't take his job, you know, for anything. He's got the responsibility and of corrections for juveniles and for the adult system. And as you know, the problems are just overwhelming. How he handles it, I don't know, because he's got just a tremendous responsibility. But gosh, we've got a great state that's aggressive and progressive, and the state of Louisiana is on top of things. I think we're trying to do. They're trying to do things that'll help the kids.
Johnny, are any of your kids, I hope this is a fair question, dangerous?
I think that you could place some children in situations that could be dangerous. And I think that's one thing that's going to confront us all, Gus, in the future. I think some of the things that have happened in the newspaper, the shootings and at the schools, you know, the kids that people, the day may come that I think so means more than it does today, because if they put the responsibility on someone for that, the things that happen, then I think it's going to change a lot of the atmosphere that we have in some of these places. If I said a kid was dangerous, then you know,
it would depend on the circumstances.
The circumstances, and what would I do with it, and what would someone else do? And I think that we're going to be faced with that. And I've told the kids here, be careful, you know, of your actions, because you know, you could pay a big price for them, because people are you know, it seems like now children that threaten, you know, people are going to take you more serious, and it's going to change the way I react to it and the way other people react to it. And of course, if the child is not serious, he may pay a tough price for comments that he wouldn't pay the price for now.
But you know what's fascinating and sad? That the kids who are doing the murdering in these schools, like Littleton, they're not from underprivileged homes. They're not from the ghetto. They're good old upper class, you might say, or upper middle class white kids who have had every advantage that can be given a child. They've got cars, and they murder.
Well, it's frightening, and particularly that you know, when you don't have the answers for it. I don't have the answers. You know, all the answers. There's one thing that I know from being here for, you know, close to 20 years, that with some children things happen that you don't expect. Some on the bad side, some on the good side.
Some on the good.
And
you hope you can balance
yeah,
them up.
and you try to balance it, and you know, we're in a I think in working with children, particularly with correction children, Gus, that we're always dealing with the extremes. We've got one side that wants to lock every kid up, then we've got an extreme who doesn't want any locked up, and then there's a happy medium in between, you know. And I think because you know, I can pretty well assure you that we've got some that need to be locked up.
I want to ask you a question, and I think that my producer, Kenny Fowler, who's sitting there, will have to admit I'm telling the truth. This is a question that I have never asked in the 17 years I've been doing this program. How can people help Johnny Robinson with this work?
Oh, well.
Now, this is going out statewide, so don't be shy.
Well, people can help us, I think, mainly, Gus, by just lifting up a little prayer every once in a while for us. You know, we're you know, you can do more if you have more. You know, we have a full-time school teacher here with a master's degree. We've got a fabulous computer laboratory that we have. We've got 16 Pentium chip computers where we can make available to kids to succeed if the computers can help them with the software and the programs.
Johnny Robinson, great football player, great humanitarian, is not a good fundraiser. Gus Weill is here to testify, and he told me so before the program. Let's say somebody wanted to send you something to help with your work. That would be Johnny Robinson's Boys Home Incorporated. What's the post office box?
It's I don't have a post office box. It's 3209 South Grand Street, Monroe, Louisiana, 71202.
Folks, Johnny Robinson has heard what most of us dream about, the roar of the crowd. Johnny Robinson has heard what most of us hear, but a lot of us don't react to. He has heard the cry of damaged and wounded children. And I know that I join every citizen of this state in telling him we're proud of you and God bless.
Thank you, Gus. Thank you so very much.
Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. This important program series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of a state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for 65 years.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or send $19.95 to Louisiana Legends, care of LPB, 7733 Perkins Road, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70810. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery.